So you're scrolling through your banking app at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, looking at your checking account balance, and you've got like $847 sitting there. Bills are paid, credit card's not maxed out, there's even a little bit in savings. But somehow you still feel broke, you still feel behind. You're watching your friends post about their lives, everyone seems to be doing better than you, and you're thinking, I must be doing something wrong because I don't feel financially stable. Here's the thing though, and this is going to sound weird. You might actually be winning and just don't know it yet. Because we've created this completely backwards way of measuring financial success where we're looking at all the wrong signals. We're comparing ourselves to highlight reels. We're measuring progress against people who are drowning in debt but look good on Instagram. And we've convinced ourselves that unless we feel rich, we must be failing. But what if I told you that there are very specific, measurable signs that you're not just doing okay, you're actually building real financial stability, real options, real freedom, even when your bank account doesn't look like a trust fund? My name is Nate, and I spend way too much time thinking about why people who are actually winning financially still feel like they're losing. If you're someone who pays your bills on time, has a little bit saved up, but still lies awake at night worried about money because you're comparing yourself to everyone else's financial fantasy, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Look, the title of this video says Gen Z's debt is out of control and getting worse. And yeah, we're going to talk about that because the stats are genuinely terrifying. But here's what most people don't realize. In the middle of this absolute debt apocalypse, there's a growing group of people who are quietly building bulletproof financial foundations, and they have no idea they're doing it. They think they're barely getting by. They think everyone else is ahead, but they're actually playing a completely different game, one where calm beats chaos every single time. And today, I'm going to show you the exact markers that separate people who are building real stability from people who just look stable. Because here's the truth, you don't need to feel rich to be winning, you just need margin. That's the whole game. But first, let's talk about why everyone's freaking out about Gen Z debt, because the numbers are actually insane. According to a 2024 TransUnion report, the average Gen Z consumer with credit card debt is carrying a balance of around $2,854. Now, that might not sound catastrophic compared to older generations, but here's where it gets dark. The delinquency rates, people who are 60+ late on payments, increased by 50% year over year for Gen Z borrowers in 2023. 50%. And it's not just credit cards. Student loan debt, buy now, pay later schemes that have gotten completely out of control, car payments on vehicles people can't afford. The Federal Reserve data shows that younger borrowers are increasingly using credit to cover basic living expenses, not just discretionary spending. But here's what's really messing with people's heads. At the same time, you've got this huge wave of personal finance content telling everyone they need to be investing, building multiple income streams, optimizing their tax strategy, and apparently everyone on TikTok is making $10,000 a month from some side hustle. So you've got one foot in absolute financial chaos and another foot in this productivity-optimized financial freedom fantasy, and you're stuck in the middle going, I paid my rent on time and have $600 in savings, so am I winning or losing? Chapter 1. The Surprise Cash Test. This is where we need to completely reframe how we measure financial health, and we're going to start with the most boring, unglamorous, absolutely critical test that most people completely ignore. Can you handle a $500 surprise in cash without it being a catastrophe? Not on a credit card, not by borrowing from family, not by selling something or taking out a loan. Cash, money you have right now that you can use to solve a problem. According to a Federal Reserve survey from 2023, about 37% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing money or selling something. Let that sink in for a second. More than 1/3 of the country is one broken transmission, one emergency room visit, one unexpected anything away from complete financial chaos. But if you can pull together $500 cash for an emergency, you're literally ahead of almost 40% of the country. If you can do $1,000, you're in an even smaller club.
Now, you might be thinking, Nate, that's such a low bar. $500? That's nothing. I thought you were going to tell me I needed 6 months of expenses saved up and a fully funded Roth IRA, and stop. Here's what most people don't realize. Financial stability isn't built in some massive leap where you go from broke to wealthy. It's built in layers. And the very first layer, the foundation that everything else sits on, is the ability to absorb a normal life surprise without it entering a debt spiral. Think about what happens when you can't cover a $500 emergency. Your car breaks down. You need it to get to work. You can't pay cash, so you put it on a credit card at 24% interest. Now you're paying $500 plus interest. You can't pay the full balance because you didn't have the $500 to begin with, so now you're paying minimum payments. Meanwhile, your credit utilization goes up, which might ding your credit score, which might affect your insurance rates, which makes everything more expensive, which makes it harder to pay down the card, which… See how fast that spirals? That's the debt trap that's eating Gen Z alive. But when you have that $500 to $1,000 buffer, your car breaks down, you pay cash, and you move on with your life. Yeah, you're back to zero in your emergency fund, but you're not in debt. You didn't enter the spiral. You absorbed the hit and kept moving. That's what margin looks like. That's layer one. And here's the thing that's going to sound controversial. If you have that $500 to $1,000 buffer and you're wondering whether you should invest it or keep it in cash, the answer is keep it in cash. I know. Opportunity cost, compound interest, time in the market beats timing the market. But you know what's more expensive than missing out on potential investment returns? Than having to borrow money at 24% interest because you invested your emergency fund in index funds that happens to be down 15% the exact week your transmission died. The surprise cash test isn't about getting rich. It's about whether you've built a floor under your life. And until you can pass the $500 to $1,000 test, and ideally the $1,000 test, every other financial move you make is being built on quicksand. Chapter 2. Money has jobs. Okay, so you've got your $500 to $1,000 emergency buffer. You're feeling pretty good. You're ahead of 40% of the country. But now you look at your checking account and you're seeing maybe $2,300 sitting there, and you're thinking, cool, I'm doing great. And then rent hits, and the car payment, and the phone bill, and groceries, and suddenly that $2,300 is actually like $340 of real money, and you're back to feeling broke. This is where most people get stuck in what I call checking account confusion. They're looking at a number, but they don't actually know what that number means. They don't know how much of it is already spoken for. This is where the concept of money has jobs becomes absolutely critical, and it comes straight from the YNAB methodology, which is one of the most powerful mental frameworks for managing money that exists. Here's the core idea. Every single dollar you have should have a specific job assigned to it before you spend it, not after, before. Most people do this backwards. They get paid, the money sits in checking, they spend it on whatever comes up, and then at the end of the month, they look back and go, where did it all go? That's reactive budgeting. That's chaos. What you want is proactive budgeting. When money comes in, you immediately assign it to categories. $600 to rent, $200 to car payment, $150 to groceries, $150 to gas, $50 to phone, $100 to credit card payment, $200 to savings, whatever. Now, when you look at your checking account and see $2,300, you're not looking at money I can spend. You're looking at money that already has jobs. You can literally see that $2,100 of it is already assigned to bills and obligations, which means your actual free money is $200. This completely changes how you make spending decisions because you're no longer lying to yourself about how much money you actually have. Let me give you a concrete example. Let's say it's the 5th of the month. You just got paid $2,800. Last month, you spent about $2,600 total. Here's what chaos budgeting looks like. You see $2,800 in your account. Feels good. You go out to dinner with friends, spend $85. You buy some stuff on Amazon, $130. You get gas, $60. A bill hits for $200, another for $150. You're just kind of flowing through the month, checking your balance periodically, hoping it all works out. By the 20th of the month, you've got $940 left and rent is due on the 1st for $1,200. Now you're stressed. Now you're trying to figure out which bills you can delay. Now you're thinking, I make decent money, why does this keep happening? Here's what it looks like when money has jobs. You get that same $2,800. Immediately you assign it. Rent due on the 1st, $1,200. Car payment due on the 15th, $280. Car insurance due on the 22nd, $140. Phone due on the 12th, $80. Groceries for the month, $400. Gas for the month, $200. Utilities due on the 18th, $120. Credit card minimum payment, $100. Savings, $150. Fun money, eating out, $130. Total, $2,800. Now you look at your checking account on the 5th and you see $2,800, but you know that only $130 of it is actually available for discretionary spending. When your friends ask you to dinner, you check your eating out category and you see you've got $130 budgeted. You can go to dinner and spend $85 and you know exactly what you have left, $45.
Chapter 5. The Big Levers. Now let's talk about the stuff that actually moves the needle financially. Because we can optimize budgets and automate payments all day long, but if the big levers are out of whack, none of it matters. The big three levers are housing, transportation, and food. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average American spends about 33% of their income on housing, 16% on transportation, and 12% on food. That's 61% of your income right there on just 3 categories. This means that if you optimize those 3 categories, you can be incredibly sloppy with everything else and still be fine. But if those 3 are a disaster, you can be perfect with everything else and still be drowning. Let's start with housing, because it's the biggest one and it's where I see the most carnage, especially with Gen Z and younger millennials. The old rule was to spend no more than 30% of your gross income on rent or mortgage. So if you make $4,000 a month, you should be spending no more than $1,200 on housing. But here's the problem. In most major cities, that's literally impossible without roommates. The median one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan is like $4,400 a month. In San Francisco, $3,200. Even in affordable cities like Austin or Denver, you're looking at $1,600 to $2,000 for a decent one-bedroom. So people are spending 40, 50, sometimes 60% of their income on rent, and then they're trying to budget the remaining scraps across everything else in their life, and they're wondering why they can't get ahead. Here's the brutal truth. If you're spending more than 35–40% of your income on housing, you are going to struggle financially no matter what else you do. You can meal prep, you can drive a cheap car, you can never eat out, and you're still going to be on the edge because the biggest lever in your life is completely out of whack. Now, I know what you're thinking. Nate, I have to live near my job. I can't just move to the middle of nowhere to save on rent. Fair. But let's actually do the math on this because I think people dramatically underestimate the impact of housing costs. Scenario A. You rent a one-bedroom apartment by yourself in a cool neighborhood for $2,000 a month. You make $60,000 a year, which is $5,000 a month gross, about $3,750 take-home after taxes. Your rent is $2,000, which is 53% of your take-home pay. You have $1,750 left for everything else: car, insurance, phone, food, going out, savings, debt payments, everything. Scenario B. You get a roommate, split a 2-bedroom apartment for $1,200 a month each. Same income, same $3,750 take-home. Now your rent is $1,200, which is 32% of your take-home. You have $2,550 left for everything else. The difference is $800 a month. That's $9,600 a year. In 5 years, that's $48,000. Let me say that again. The difference between living alone in a trendy apartment versus having a roommate in a still nice apartment is basically $48,000 over 5 years. Now, maybe living alone is worth $48,000 to you. That's a valid choice, but make it consciously. Know what you're trading. Because here's what I see all the time.
People are spending an extra $800 to $1,000 a month to live alone, and then they're stressed about not being able to save, not being able to invest, not being able to pay down debt, and they're optimizing their grocery budget trying to save $50 a month on food while hemorrhaging $800 a month on unnecessary housing costs. That's what I mean by big levers. You can be perfect on the small stuff and still lose if the big levers are wrong. Same thing with transportation. The average new car payment in America right now is about $730 a month. For a used car, it's around $550. And those are 6 or 7 year loans, which is insane. You know what's also insane? People making $50,000 a year buying $35,000 cars because the monthly payment feels affordable at $600 a month. Here's the thing about cars. They are depreciating assets. The second you drive off the lot, the car is worth less than you paid for it. And if you're financing it, you're paying interest on a depreciating asset, which is like the worst possible financial move you can make. Let's do the math. You buy a $35,000 car with $2,000 down. You finance $33,000 at 7% interest for 6 years. Your payment is $561 a month. Over 6 years, you'll pay $40,396 total. At the end of 6 years, that car is worth maybe $15,000 if you're lucky. You paid $40,396 for something worth $15,000. Now compare that to buying a $10,000 used car in cash. Same 6 years later, that car is worth maybe $4,000. You paid $10,000 for something worth $4,000. In the first scenario, you lost $25,396. In the second scenario, you lost $6,000. The difference is $19,396. And we haven't even talked about insurance, which is way more expensive on a newer car, or maintenance, or any of that. But here's where it gets really interesting. If instead of spending $561 a month on a car payment, you bought the $10,000 used car in cash and invested that $561 a month in a basic index fund, averaging 10% annual returns, after 6 years, you'd have about $52,000. So your choice is option A, spend $40,396 on a car that's worth $15,000, net loss of $25,396, or option B, spend $10,000 on a car that's worth $4,000 and invest the difference, net gain of $46,000. That's a $71,396 difference in your net worth after 6 years from one decision, one lever. Now, do you need to drive a beater car to be financially successful? No. But you need to understand what you're trading. If driving a nice car is worth $71,396 over 6 years, great, make that choice, but know what the choice costs. And food is the same thing. The average American spends about $300 to $400 per month on groceries and another $200 to $300 eating out. That's $500 to $700 total. But you can easily spend $800 to $1,000 a month if you're eating out multiple times a week and buying
Chapter 5. The Big Levers. Now let's talk about the stuff that actually moves the needle financially. Because we can optimize budgets and automate payments all day long, but if the big levers are out of whack, none of it matters. The big 3 levers are housing, transportation, and food. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average American spends about 33% of their income on housing, 16% on transportation, and 12% on food. That's 61% of your income right there on just 3 categories. This means that if you optimize those 3 categories, you can be incredibly sloppy with everything else and still be fine. But if those 3 are a disaster, you can be perfect with everything else and still be drowning. Let's start with housing, because it's the biggest one and it's where I see the most carnage, especially with Gen Z and younger millennials. The old rule was to spend no more than 30% of your gross income on rent or mortgage. So if you make $4,000 a month, you should be spending no more than $1,200 on housing. But here's the problem.
In most major cities, that's literally impossible without roommates. The median one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan is like $4,400 a month. In San Francisco, $3,200. Even in affordable cities like Austin or Denver, you're looking at $1,600 to $2,000 for a decent one-bedroom. So people are spending 40, 50, sometimes 60% of their income on rent, and then they're trying to budget the remaining scraps across everything else in their life, and they're wondering why they can't get ahead. Here's the brutal truth. If you're spending more than 35–40% of your income on housing, you are going to struggle financially no matter what else you do. You can meal prep, you can drive a cheap car, you can never eat out, and you're still going to be on the edge because the biggest lever in your life is completely out of whack. Now, I know what you're thinking. Nate, I have to live near my job. I can't just move to the middle of nowhere to save on rent. Fair. But let's actually do the math on this because I think people dramatically underestimate the impact of housing costs. Scenario A. You rent a one-bedroom apartment by yourself in a cool neighborhood for $2,000 a month. You make $60,000 a year, which is $5,000 a month gross, about $3,750 take-home after taxes. Your rent is $2,000, which is 53% of your take-home pay. You have $1,750 left for everything else: car, insurance, phone, food, going out, savings, debt payments, everything. Scenario B. You get a roommate, split a two-bedroom apartment for $1,200 a month each. Same income, same $3,750 take-home. Now your rent is $1,200, which is 32% of your take-home. You have $2,550 left for everything else. The difference is $800 a month. That's $9,600 a year. In 5 years, that's $48,000. Let me say that again. The difference between living alone in a trendy apartment versus having a roommate in a still nice apartment is basically $48,000 over 5 years. Now, maybe living alone is worth $48,000 to you. That's a valid choice, but make it consciously. Know what.
Chapter 9. The debt paydown question. Now we need to talk about the elephant in the room. What if you have debt? Should you be saving and investing while you're in debt, or should you pay off the debt first? This is where personal finance gets really personal because the math answer and the psychology answer are often different. Here's the math. If you have credit card debt at 22% interest and the stock market averages 10% returns, you should pay off the debt first because you're guaranteed a 22% return by avoiding that interest versus a risky 10% return from investing. But here's the psychology. If you have $15,000 in credit card debt and you're putting every extra penny toward it, and it's going to take you 3 years to pay it off, and during those 3 years you have $0 in savings and you're not investing anything and you're living on the edge the whole time, you might give up. You might decide this is too hard. You might spiral. So the psychology says, build a small emergency fund first, $1,000, then attack the debt. But maybe still put a tiny bit toward investing, $50 a month, just so you can see that account growing and stay motivated. This is the Dave Ramsey baby steps approach. And while I don't agree with everything Dave says, this part is smart. The $1,000 emergency fund keeps you from going into more debt when life happens. The small investing amount keeps you psychologically engaged with building wealth even while you're paying off debt. But here's my actual take. It depends on the type of debt. High-interest debt, credit cards, payday loans, etc., pay this debt as aggressively as possible after you have a $1,000 to $2,000 emergency buffer. This debt is an emergency. It's killing you. Every dollar you put toward it is a guaranteed high return. But here's medium-interest debt. Car loans, student loans at 6 to 8%. This is where it gets nuanced. You could pay extra toward this, or you could invest the extra money, and the math is kind of a toss-up. My take? Pay the minimums, build your emergency fund to 3 to 6 months, then decide whether to attack the debt or invest based on what makes you feel more secure. Low-interest debt. Mortgage at 3 to 4%, student loans at 4 to 5%.
Don't rush to pay this off. Pay the minimums, invest the difference. The opportunity cost of paying off 4% debt when you could be earning 10% in the market is too high. Let me give you a concrete example. You have $8,000 in credit card debt at 22% interest, minimum payment of $200 a month, $15,000 in student loans at 5% interest, minimum payment of $150 a month. You have an extra $500 a month after covering all your minimum payments and expenses. Here's what I would do. Month 1 to 2, build a $1,000 to $2,000 emergency fund. Park that $500 a month here until you've got it. Month 3 plus, attack the credit card debt with everything you've got. That $500 a month goes entirely to the credit card until it's dead. At $500 a month extra, so $700 total, you'll have it paid off in about 12 to 13 months. Once the credit card is dead, now you've got that $700 freed up, the $200 minimum plus the $500 extra. I'd split it. $200 a month to finish building emergency fund to 3 to 6 months, $200 to investing, $300 to extra student loan payments. Why? Because the student loans are only 5% interest. That's not an emergency. But having no emergency is an emergency. And not investing at all means you're missing out on compound interest during your highest earning years. Once emergency fund is fully funded, shift that $200 to investing. Now you're investing $400 a month and paying $450 on student loans, $150 minimum plus $300 extra. At that point, you could debate whether to kill the student loans faster or invest more. Personally, I'd probably go 50-50 because the psychological win of being debt-free is real, but so is the long-term benefit of investing early. But here's the key. This is not a one-size-fits-all thing. Some people need the psychological win of being completely debt-free before they can focus on wealth building. Other people are fine carrying low-interest debt forever if it means they can invest more. The math might say one thing, but your psychology might say another. And in personal finance, psychology often matters more than math.